Welcome, everyone, to another amazing episode of the Average Ontario Anglers Fishing Podcast. Today, we have a super cool episode. We wait all year to do this one episode. If this is your first time joining this podcast, my name is Jesse. I'm the host of the show. And joined with me is our comedic co-host and bearded wonder, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's a wonder I'm a comedian, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. So the Average Ontario Anglers Fishing Podcast, if this is your first time joining, we are a podcast where we talk about average things, average size fish, average fishing trips. Just kidding. We talk about awesome things. We have awesome guests, and we're just wrapping up the 2025 season, but 2026, we have some really cool plans coming up. But before we wrap up this season, we always love this episode, and this episode is our top lures of 2025. Now, I know throughout the year, we had a lot of guests on, we had a lot of guides on, people that fish professionally or fish a lot. And we were kind of picking their brains as to what kind of baits they use just to make sure that we're not doing anything wrong. Turns out we were, but we're going to share what worked for us personally. And some of these were actually tips from some of the guides. So this is a compilation of a bunch of baits. Like, I know Andrew's got a bunch there, like jiggling around on the table. I've got too many. I'm almost afraid to put my hand down anywhere. So I'm just going to, my hands are up here. I don't want to hook myself like last year, right, Andrew?
You've been very close every time we've done one of these episodes. You've come very close to getting past the barb.
Let's just say last year I may or may not have dropped a jerkbait on my crotch, like pants. Like it bounced, thankfully. Yeah.
The first time he has all these jerkbaits on the table, and he's like, "Oh, I like replacing all these hooks with these super nice Japanese hooks," and he slams his hand down on the table and starts rattling the baits around. I'm like, "How did you not get hooked?"
I do carpentry. My hands have calluses, Andrew. He would know that if he actually worked hard. Just kidding. Andrew's a plumber. He's good at lifting up heavy lures. Anyway, before we get into this awesome episode, we have, as tradition states, the interesting fishing fact. And to handle that, we have Andrew.
Thank you. Actually, you should be thanking me. I prepared an interesting fishing fact this week.
Thank you, Andrew. That's all clap for Andrew. He did his job.
Minimum effort.
Dazzle us, man.
So, have you ever felt weighted down, like you don't want to move?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to know how
to be fair, in a side point, I felt that very recently because my wife just bought one of those weighted blankets. So we always had a weighted blanket we bought a few years ago, but she just ordered one of the heavy ones. And I'm not even like super strong, but I'm not weak either. I was trying to push it out on the bed. My arms almost ripped off. It weighs like 40 pounds. So yes. Anyway, continue.
So do you want to know how to replicate that feeling of feeling weighed down, not wanting to move?
Yes.
We're going to talk about how to anchor your boat properly. So there's different people have different ideas as to what is the proper way to anchor a boat or how to do it effectively. And why are we talking about this? It's because people who are shore anglers, they don't have to worry about this.
Lucky them.
Anyone who fishes out of anything from a bass boat to a kayak may and most likely has an anchor on their vessel. And you might think, okay, so why are we talking about it? Because there's a variety of anchors, there's a variety of ways people say to do it. And so I thought I'm going to do a bunch of research here and figure out what the best scenario and best usage for anchors would be on 3 different types of vessels. So what we'll get into a bit, first of all, how anchors work. And this might sound silly, but bear with me. So an anchor, it has basically 2 functions. Or 3 functions. It has weight, right? It's a heavy object. And it usually digs into the bottom of the river or the lake. But there's a third thing that's extremely important. Probably the most important part of having an effective anchor. What do you think that is?
I don't know.
It's called scope. And you're like, that makes no sense. And that's true, because that word, I don't know why they used it. But the scope is the rope length versus the water depth. So, for example, if your scope is your anchor line length divided by water depth. Now, we don't have to worry about that too much. We're going to follow ratios. Those are easy for us to use. Recommended scope ratios. So if it's calm water, you want a 3-to-1 ratio. So let's say it's 10 feet deep. You want 30 feet of anchor rope out. And that's for calm water. And a lot of the time you think, okay, that's more than a 45-degree angle that's heading towards your boat, or less than a 45-degree angle. It might seem excessive. But if you have moderate wind or current, you should have a 5-to-1 ratio. And if it's strong wind or current, a 7 to 10 to 1 ratio. That seems ridiculous, right? I'm like, I know for me, I think I have 30 feet of anchor rope maximum. It's okay, well, that means I can only go and anchor in 10 feet of water effectively. And basically, yeah, that's true. Larger boats, they use, it's called the catenary curve. And that is specifically with chains. So a chain, when you have a chain and you have it nice and tight, but under gravity, just loose, the chain has this very specific curve to it. And they have all these like calculations to what they use for these larger vessels. It's a quite in-depth process that they use in order to anchor effectively, depending on what the surface of the bottom of the ocean is or the lake, and what the conditions are. All that's the depth. All those things come into play when they're figuring out how to properly anchor their vessel. Because if that vessel moves, they're in deep or shallow water and they get ruined.
Mm-hmm.
So why this catenary curve matters is when you have a boat that's on the waves, it's moving up and down, or side to side. It's moving around. It's not stationary. Your anchor is stationary. But if it's too tight, you don't have enough of that curve, essentially what happens is your boat will start to move and actually starts pulling and lifting the anchor. The anchor, though, is only effective when it has a low, steady pulling motion on it. That's what that curve is doing, is it's allowing the boat to move but still have enough pulling force. It's always in one direction coming off of that anchor with limited movement, so it's not prying that anchor out or moving it. And that's why it's able to hold effectively. So one of the things that can help, even if you have, you're not big freighters and stuff like that, or cruise ships, so we don't need a whole length of chain. I'm not going to tell you to put 500 pounds of chain in your canoe that can only support 300 pounds. But if you have a larger boat, like a tinner or a bass boat or something similar, it's recommended to have about 2 to 6 feet of chain, and that will help your rope or your anchor, the anchor attachment point, to lay as flat to the bottom as possible. So it's not lifting up and pulling directly on that anchor. It's kind of pulling across the bottom of the lake or river. Kayaks or canoes, usually there's no chain, but if you wanted to put like a foot or so of chain above it, that will still help keep the anchor line down right at the point of contact with the anchor itself. And of course, the huge boats, they just use full chain. And it's because it's effective in that catenary curve. So there's also different types of anchors. I don't know the last time you went anchor shopping, Jesse, but if you had to guess, how many like anchors 10 years ago, how many types of anchors did you think there were?
Well, usually there was, the mushroom ones.
Yeah.
And then there's the one like you think like Mr. Crab's daughter, her house is like a big, the traditional anchor, like the hook one.
Yeah.
And then generally the anchor I see that people have in their boat is just a cinder block tied to a piece of rope.
Yeah. So there's, I grew up only remembering the one that my dad had. I'm like, that's all there is. It's kind of one that folds down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has like two prongs that are kind of like flopping between the actual posts that it's tied to. And that's all I knew. I'm like, that's what an anchor is, and it was identifiable. But there are like a bunch of different types, and they all have their purposes. So having all anchors require that same, like I said, that nice even pressure that's not lifting it up. All anchors require that to be effective. But each anchor will hold differently depending on what it's sitting on. So, for example, you have the Danforth or fluke anchor. That is a long shank with two wide pivoting flukes. Sometimes they're flat, sometimes they're kind of like a little claw. That's the one, like I was already mentioning, that's the one I always knew, and that's what I thought there only was. So that's called a fluke anchor, and that's good for mud or sand. It has a high holding power, it's lightweight, and it's ideal for small boats, because it'll kind of dig into that soft substrate and hold in place. Then there's the box anchor, which I only found out about recently. These things are cool. It's picture a box, but it requires very little pressure over movement for it to pull in. So it sets instantly, it holds very well. Some of the anchors you're supposed to like back in and actually drive them into the ground before you don't just set it and forget. The box anchor is like that. You just set it down. You don't even need to back into it most of the time. It just holds you well. And it's basically a box open in the middle, and it ties onto the end. And it bites into the bottom regardless of how it sits in the bottom. It will fit in nicely. And there's also minimal chain that's required for those in order to grab as well. Then there's the grapnel anchor or the folding anchor. And that one is often used for like paddle craft, canoes. And there you can find a collapsible, it kind of looks like a grapple hook like Batman would use.
Yeah.
It's like throwing on top of the roof and then climbing it sideways. But you can have those, and those are good. It's a central shaft, multiple curved claws. That holds good in rocks or wood. But again, like a grapple hook, it needs something solid to grab onto. It does not hold well in like soft sand or mud or anything like that. Then you have what you mentioned, the mushroom anchor. That one is good for really soft bottom because it will just kind of settle in and kind of fill with that material. And again, it looks like an upside down mushroom. That one's easiest to describe.
I like those because like where I fish and it's like a lot of mucky bottoms with like weeds and stuff. I had another anchor that was like one of those claw ones, and I'd throw it down into the weeds. And then when you're pulling up, you pull it up and there'd be like 40 pounds of weeds on it. You're like, oh, gross. And you have to like, pick off all the clumps of weeds and like muck and on the bottom. But the mushroom one, I know it doesn't have a lot of like hold, but it doesn't hold a lot of crap. So when you like pick it up and like shake it out, all the stuff comes off. So, and it looks like a mushroom. It's cute.
And the mushroom ones, they work mainly by their weight and also by the mud suction. So once they settle in, it's like when your boot gets stuck in the mud trying to lift it out, it can be tough. That's what that anchor's simulating as well. But they do have a downside in rocks or current. They don't hold pretty much at all. And the last one is the claw anchor. And that one's pretty interesting. Have you ever seen like an old farmer's plow? It's like one kind of like flat hooked blade. These things are cool when they drop in. You ever see a video of these and they just start dragging on the bottom and then the point catches and it turns and just digs itself in. It's actually pretty cool to see these things work. But again, it works on sand, mud, or gravel. It has to be in something that it can dig into. So I was doing, again, with all these different options, you might think, well, what do I do? I'm not going to have 6 different anchors on my boat or 5 different anchors on my boat because that's silly and I want space for lures and rods and not anchors and rope and chain and all that stuff. So I did more research. So these are kind of the best overall for multiple situation effective anchor setups that you could have for different boats. So first of all, a bass boat or a fiberglass aluminum boat, kind of like the new one that I got. Well, new to me. So like a 16 to 21 foot boat. The best overall is the box anchor. And again, I had never heard of these before, but I want to look into getting one because they're reliable in mixed bottoms. They require minimal chain, so again, less weight overall. And it holds exceptionally well in wind. It's actually one of the best ones for windy conditions. And it's easy to set and reset, to retrieve and stuff like that. There's not much they get caught on, which is also very good. So that's one I'm probably going to look into picking up myself. But for a small aluminum boat, it's like a 10 to 16 foot tinner or John boat, they actually recommend the Danforth or Fluke anchor. So again, that's the one with kind of those flat paddles that pivot down and dig in. It's light. It doesn't take up much space for storage. And a lot of the lakes around, they have a lot of sand and mud in Ontario and stuff like that. And it will hold very well in those conditions. But again, if you have a lake that's more rock, you might need to have a claw anchor or something like that. That may have a better chance of holding on. But those are pretty much the cheapest anchors you can find. They're pretty affordable as well. So if you don't have any, that's a great one to kind of start off with if you have like a tinner or something like that. The last one would be for canoes or kayaks. And the best recommendation is the folding grapnel anchor. The reason why is they don't take a lot to hold. So again, the weight of itself probably won't hold you in place. But if you can grab into anything, even if it's just some weeds, chances are you're not ripping out all those weeds it's caught on.
Yeah.
And they can weigh as little as 1.5 pounds up to 3.5 pounds. Like these things are light, but they'll catch on rock, gravel, timber. And again, if you're fishing, if there's lots of rocks or stuff around, those are actually a really good option for your anchor. And it's one-hand deployment. Yeah.
Yeah. I think mine was a 2.5 pounder. And it was crazy because they're small and they fold up really small.
Yeah.
Once you whip them out, once they catch into something, you're not going anywher.
My wife uses it on the paddleboard too.
Oh yeah. Sometimes though, you just feel tempted to spin it around like Batman and just let it go. But
so that's a good point. Then the last couple of things I want to talk about is deployment of an anchor. And I'm used to swing it if you can and throw it as far as you can out there. Excellent. But what we've learned is we know that we need in prime, nice, calm conditions, we need at least 3 times the length out than like away from the boat as it is deep.
Mm-hmm.
So your chances are you're not, even if you have a light, 5-pound anchor, you're probably not throwing that 50, 60 feet out there. And, when you're in 15, 20 feet of water. So the best thing to do it is actually to lower the anchor. Don't throw it over the side. 2 reasons is one, it's safer. But the other one, you can kind of gauge the depth, especially if you don't have the depth finder. You can see how deep it is, and then like catch how many like hand lengths it takes to go down, and then increase that as a little extra additional line on top of that in order to make sure you have the correct length sitting out there. The right scope, as we learned. And another point is you don't want to anchor from the stern or the back of the boat, especially on larger boats, just because if the wind and waves start coming, they're going to push and they can wash right over the transom of the boat, start filling the boat up. So you do want to always anchor from the bow whenever possible. But that's kind of the safety side of the anchors. But I know for me, I need to buy a new anchor that will be effective for all the days that we fish, which are usually terribly cold and windy. And now I want a box anchor.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's one thing that for a long time I would just always forget to bring. Like in the canoe, I'd be like, it's fine. I got a trolling motor. But you don't realize how good an anchor is if you're not someone that generally brings one on those super windy days when you're like, okay, I want to fish this spot, and you chuck the anchor out and the wind's pushing everything and your boat's just rock solid there. It's like, oh, this is nice. You don't need spot lock. All you need is a 30-pound anchor.
My biggest thing was, like, in all the times I've used anchors before, looking back, I'm like, I never had enough anchor line out.
Yeah.
And I would be so frustrated because I'm like, why isn't this holding here? And I'll be fine for 5-10 minutes, and then a bit extra wave or wind comes by and like, oh, it pulled the anchor, and I'm just drifting right off the spot, and it was aggravating. But it's important to know, like I said, that was the biggest thing I learned from it was those ratios for that scope to make sure you have enough line out in that water so that you can actually stay and not get frustrated by it moving off your spot all the time, because that happened, I would say, every single time I tried to use my anchor.
Yeah. No, it's something I guess that a lot of people regularly use, but probably most people aren't doing it correctly just because of who knows about that. You have to be a nerd to look up anchor facts. I mean, seriously.
Thanks for calling me a nerd.
You're welcome. Thanks, Andrew. Again, the interesting fishing fact is always about something that, like we said, maybe it's something that we all take for granted. Random facts. It may sound boring, but it's actually helpful, right? And yeah, Andrew, you need to get a new anchor because your boat, it's too big for my little 2.5-pound kayak anchor. Imagine that. Don't worry, this will hold us. Just chuck it out there. Hopefully it hooks onto a rock.
Yeah.
So anyway, this episode, again, like I mentioned, we are always excited to talk about the lures that worked well for us. Now, to be fair, a bit of a disclaimer. We are well aware that most lures are gimmicks. Let's be serious. We like trying new stuff. We could probably use 5 or 6 lures all year and catch the same fish, but we like trying new stuff that's more effective, maybe in whatever condition, or some lures that are just fun to use, right? But every year we do this, I feel like the lures that we use are pretty much very similar, but maybe we just refine the way that we fish them. So as we talk about these lures, we're also going to talk a little bit about, the situation we're going to use them in, as well as any tips or tricks that we learned from possibly ourselves using them or seeing other people like guides that we fish with or friends that we fish with use them as well as like different categories of each lure. So I thought the way that we normally do it, and it makes sense to me, is we'll kind of start off at the beginning of the year and kind of work through. And we're going to start, this is open water lures, by the way. We're going to cover ice fishing real soon in the next few episodes. So we're not going to cover ice fishing lures. So we're going to start off in the spring. And I think some of the first days that we go fishing every year in the spring, we are fishing for ice out pike, which is one of our favorite things to do. It's actually one of our most downloaded podcast episodes, is actually our early spring pike fishing episode. So definitely check that out. I'll put the link down below. The pike episodes always do really good. And again, we always say, people are like, oh, I don't like pike fishing. Pike is stupid. But every episode we do on pike, it's like, it has some of the most downloads. I'm like, what? Like, you guys, you like
and
pike.
If someone got offended by that remark, it's because you sound like that.
Yeah, you 100% sound like that. When it comes to pike fishing, did you have any lures, Andrew, that you have there in your top lures that you did well pike fishing this year?
I do. So a couple, kind of like spring into like late spring for pike. One of the biggest ones, like we always talk about jerk baits, and this year I tried to pick out things that weren't just like the standard, like, oh, like I like my X-Wrap. Yeah, I still used it this year. I still caught on it. I still like them, but I wanted to try like some different options. So one of the ones I was really satisfied, really happy with. This is it's actually from Daiwa, the Lazy Fat Shad, and I'm pricking myself already with these very sharp hooks. But this thing is an odd like jerk bait. It's almost like a twitch bait. But it's got like heavy like rattle like knockers in it, and a front tie option obviously. But this one I found like it sinks fairly slow, but it's the most erratic jerkbait I've ever used. Because there's no like lip on it, it's just this small little ridge right between its eyes kind of thing. But there's no lip on this bait. So when I was working it, you can twitch it and this thing just rolls like almost all the way over, and it's darting side to side. It's not really like controlled walk the dog. It's just like erratic. Whenever you twitch this thing, it is going wherever it wants. So for me, I found that really nice. But you can pause it, let it sit, and it did very well of again with a leader on. I found it just sank very slowly. Depending on the leader, you could probably get it to suspend as well. But I had good success with this thing as a fun other option for a jerkbait, and especially for pike. It only has 2 trebles, so I didn't hook myself while using it this year while unhooking a pike.
Yeah, that's one of those random lures that I had never heard of at the time until Andrew showed me, which is usually what happens. Andrew would be like, hey, check out this weird lure that I found. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And then he catches a bunch of fish on it. Then I'm like, oh, where'd you get it? And then you can't find it anywhere. But I actually did see those at Gagnon Sports, I think.
Yeah.
And they're around. So it's very cool, unique bait. Maybe something that the fish don't really see, because it is very, very erratic and random. It's very cool. It's snack
not
size.
What you expect. Yeah, and it's not what you expect from its action, perhaps. Like when you think jerkbait, it's very like, this is what I want. It surprised me how it worked in the water. But a couple of good things I'll say for it is the hooks. These are still the original hooks on it. They're still deadly sharp, so you don't have to like swap them out right away. They're not super thick. I also caught some bass on it this year too, which it's a perfect size for like even a smallmouth and stuff like that to make use of. So that is, I like the different profile though than just your standard like long body like jerkbait. This is a nice, more like a shad style or Cisco like body shape.
That's cool. And sticking on jerk baits, as you guys know, we love fishing jerk baits. We try a bunch of different kinds, and I think throughout the last few years, some of my top jerk baits have always been like, the Nishini Erie, which is one of my favorites, or the Jackal Re-Range, stuff like that. Like I've kind of gravitated to using some slightly high-end jerk baits. Like those baits are not cheap; they're like $30. But this year, I didn't really use a lot of high-end jerk baits. I kind of went back to like my roots of like using Husky jerks. I don't know. This year when I was going through my stuff, I was like, okay, I have all these Husky jerks. I put new hooks on them, some of my older ones. And I use a lot of Husky jerks this year, but one of my favorites, and it has been one of my favorites for a long time, is the Rapala Shadow Wrap. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. This is just a classic one you see. It's not really expensive. I think they're $13-14. I don't know if they've gone up in price, but it's a flat-sided jerkbait, but it has a really tiny lip on it. But the flat sides are like mirrored. So as you jerk it and twitch it, it throws off a lot of flash. Like there's like, it's clear plastic, but like holographic, like silver foil underneath. And this one's clown color. This is like a smallmouth killer. But the thing I like about this particular one for pike in the spring is it is a very, very shallow diving jerkbait. So this particular one, it dives 2 to 4 feet, but generally I find that it's like 2 feet. Like it's very, very shallow diving, which you may say, well, why would you want a bait to go that shallow? But when we're fishing ice out pike, we're often fishing for pike that are like legit staging to go up and spawn in shallow, really
4 to 6 feet of water.
Yeah, we've seen pike in
up 2
10
feet
inches of water. Yeah. So oftentimes we'll be fishing these bays and the weeds aren't really up yet. There might be some dead weeds, but it's like dead reeds, dead lily pad roots in shallow water with mud bottoms. And these pike are coming in to get ready to spawn because they spawn on these reed beds and stuff like that in the shallows, really shallow water. Like you'll see pike in like a foot of water sometimes, especially when the sun's out and there's
You'll
sunning.
see them with their back out sometimes.
Yeah. So it got to the point where I'm like, I really like jerk baits, but I can't fish one that dives even 4 or 5 feet because I'm going to be popping to the bottom. And everyone knows pike have eyes on the top of their head. They look up and they're usually sitting on the bottom. So this is one of the jerk baits that I've really gravitated to the last few years. Not this particular color. This is a clown color, good for everything, but just the regular silver one. I really wish they made like a fire tiger one of this. I noticed a lot of the Rapala like jerk baits, they don't have fire tiger. I'm like, come on, man, just do it. It's the best color ever for pike. But this one has done good for me. I've gone through a few of these. They don't last forever because they are plastic and the hooks are really thin, so you're gonna have to replace them eventually. But really great bait, absolutely fantastic. But it's one of those baits you can use for like walleye, smallmouth, pike, everything, bass, great bait. So that's pretty much for pike. There's a few more baits I want to talk about quick, but that's one of my favorite beginner baits too. Like even my nephew is like young, is like, you can teach someone to fish a jerk bait like that pretty easy because it's another bait that if you can't jerk it like professionally, I'd say, you can cast it out, give it a few pops of the rod and then just reel it in and it still has a nice wobble, nice little twitching action. And then you can tell them to stop. It'll just suspend, jerk the rod down. It'll jerk forward, reel it in. Easy. You can also troll them if you're doing that. We've caught a lot of pike just trolling jerk baits behind the boat, flat line behind the boat, cover a lot of water. So
pop your rod the odd time as you're trolling.
Yep,
it does work actually.
Oh, absolutely. It's great for a lazy man.
Yes,
or a lazy girl. Do you have any more pike baits, Andrew?
I do have one which is not, again, it's versatile. You can use it for other things, but I did throw it primarily for pike this year. And that was the 6th Sense underspin. I can't remember the exact name of the head. And then paired with the Rapala Crush City, the Mayor, which is not a TPE, but it's a very resilient plastic. The design of the bait, it's not like super, super thin on like the paddle tail and stuff on it. So it's held up well, even catching like multiple pike on this one specifically. And a bit of tearing around the hook and stuff like that. So it's sliding down a bit, but nothing that can be fixed with a little bit of plastic on the hook or something like that just to hold the bait up. But I really like these heads specifically. Again, the Mayor has been a great profile. I don't think I'm going to change it. It has really good action while on this jig head. But with its underspin, it's got a nice long willow leaf blade and it has a really long shank going to it. And I find a lot of the other underspins that I've used, there's not enough space between that blade and the bait itself. And so what I find will happen is the blade will spin and then it kind of gets caught underneath a piece of plastic, the actual trailer, and then just stops spinning, and then you kind of like pop it. You're trying to get that blade off the bait, and then it spins for another 10 seconds on the retrieve, and it gets caught again. So this one, I don't have that issue. It sticks out far enough below the bait. It also has a screw lock head on the back of it, so it's nice and easy. And unlike some like the fixed hook ones, it can be tough. Again, we're used to it to do it, but I know for someone who has never used a screw lock head before, to try and like get that bait in, you got to bend it around that hook point all the time. It's kind of like awkward. This one here, because it's got an EWG, that hook can actually fold right down out of the way. You screw it on nice and easy, and then you can just put that EWG that's kind of like on a hinge in this jig head and just bend it back up and rig it to the bait. And so this is one that I've just had a lot of success on for bass and pike this year. But that has been my go-to underspin. And on days when I don't want to fish a chatterbait or something a bit more subtle, but I want a bit more than just a paddle hill on a jig head, this has been like my go-to, and I loved it. So I have a few more of these heads, but I've been really liking these heads.
Yeah, and that's the 6th Sense axle underspin. So it's like a jig head, but it's an EWG, like Texas rig style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, funny story. My next bait is actually also a 6th Sense underspin, but it's the traditional jig head underspin. And this particular bait, heartbreak, absolute heartbreak. Quick story, but yeah, so just to tell you about this particular one, I think it's a 1/2 ounce head. The 6th Sense stuff, I don't know how much it matters. I don't think it really matters, but they're very realistic looking. They got nice little eyes, the eyes looking down like a fish, It's got a nice blade underneath and a really stout hook. The hook is actually like, it's hard to flex. So I got these specifically for the pike tournament that we did earlier, but the hook is actually stout. Like sometimes you buy underspins and they're more like finessey bass style. This is like for big bass. These underspins are like, they're heavy duty ones. So they work really good for pike. But it's nice. I have about a 4.5 inch paddle tail on the back of this. The cool thing about these is you can fish them at any depth. Like Andrew said, it's just a versatile bait. You chuck it in. Andrew's is a little more versatile, the one that has an EWG, because you can actually cast it into weeds and logs.
Into
right?
reeds in the summer was awesome. Like you could fish this like a spinner bait, like right into the pencil reeds and stuff like that. I do like that side of it. But sometimes you do want the exposed hook.
Yeah. It's just, it depends where I'm fishing, right? So like if I'm going to be fishing around cover, I'm probably not going to use an exposed hook, right? But if I'm in open water, you will get better hook sets and penetration with an exposed hook, obviously. So pick whichever one seems better for the situation. But here's the heartbreak of the story. So I was out fishing. I was actually fishing with one of our guests this year. We had on Bobby Belmonte, took me out pike fishing. We were fishing a lake that has some big pike in it, like absolute giant fish, like 40 inches. And I've come close. I'm like at 37.5 inch northern pike. And I'm like, I want to catch a 40. I've been trying for a few years. And I absolutely cracked a fish on this one of these. I set the hook, had it on for about 3 seconds, and then my line just snapped. Like it just went slack, and I was like, "What?" And then he points the live scope over to where the fish was, because he was just looking around, and when I hooked the fish, and this massive northern, just you see it like going into the depths, and he's like, oh my goodness, that was a 40 inch. It was huge, it was massive, and I was like, oh my goodness. I reel in my line, it had bit through my 80-pound fluorocarbon leader. Clean cut. It wasn't like a break, it was a clean cut right through a tooth. Like it was sheared like scissors. I was like, I'm using wire from now on, or heavier. Like this was a musky sized pike, and it literally just inhaled it. It hit it like a freight train. And I guess I must have just had the fluoro right between his teeth when I set the hook, because it was like ting, done. And I cried myself to sleep every day, even last night. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Anyway, do you have any more spring baits?
I had one that is kind of spring, but I did use it all year. This isn't the one in particular that I was using this spring. I have purchased this since. But the Suic, this is the high impact one, which I highly recommend. I love the high impact because it has the weight kit, 2 different positions to have it dive however you want, have it slow rise, have it sink. I really like this one for that, and I had a lot of success on Suics this year. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to fish a bunch of them, and I caught a lot of pike. Not even musky. I caught a lot of pike on these Suics, and even like some good bass on these 9-inch Suics. But I had my first. I was going again. You're fishing actually that. I think it was the same lake that Jesse lost his pike in that last story. And I lost what would have been my PB pike on that same lake. I think it's cursed. We're just cursed, or the lake is cursed. I don't know.
We're cursed.
But I was fishing a Suic, and it was an older style, and I set the hook on. I finally get a strike. This huge pike blows up on it. I set the hook, and my line just comes flying back in my face. And I'm like, what happened? And I look, and I thought, did my snap open or something like that? Nope. The eyelet off the front of the Suic had ripped out. But I don't know if this was an aftermarket Suic. When I bought it, I don't know. I don't want to bad talk any stores that I got it from, but this is a number of years ago, and it was only like a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 length of screw threads into the front of this wooden Suic. So it ripped right out of the bait, and I was heartbroken.
Yeah, that's weird.
I took other Suics that I had at home, because I had another old one. I undid it, and it's like a 2-inch like screw that's into the front of it. So I don't know what happened to this one as to why it had such a short little eye screw, but yeah, that hurt. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go high impact, because it's got the wire through right into the body. It's like a wire harness all through the body of this one. And again, having the weight kits, you don't have to modify it, comes with it. This has been an awesome dive and rise that I caught multiple pike on this year. This one specifically. I had a few other Suics with a 10-inch and different colors and stuff like that. But this was my one I was throwing the most, just because I could easily swap out the weights for when I was fishing, depending where I was fishing. And oftentimes I'd just take out the one on the head, and it would fish like much shallower, or I put the head back on and it tips forward a bit more again. So I was really just taking this one on and off just to get a bit of fish a range of depth when I was at the cottage and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like you said about the pike, so like we were fishing Kawarthas, right? And I think Andrew's fishing up near zone 15, I think,
mm-hmm.
where where you went camping that one time. And we always know pike are dumb and they'll hit big things. But like I was fishing a musky opener with one of my buddies, and we were fishing one of the Kawartha lakes that has pike in it as well. And I wasn't chucking big musky lures because it was early June, but I was chucking, a mini Medusa and a 9-inch suic. And I had multiple pike under 20 inches just come up and crush that 9-inch suic. And like you look at it, it's not a giant bait by musky standards, but by bass standards, it's a giant bait. And you wouldn't normally think, like a normal person would be like, I'm not using that for pike, are you? It's like, yeah, and I'm catching dinks on it. So don't be afraid to chuck a suic. Like a 9-inch suic is not a big bait. Not at all for a big fish.
I was fishing my 10-inch suic most of the time, and then I was fishing that high impact as well, which is a 9-inch. And I caught, I think it was 7 or 8 pike. Not a single one was over 23 inches. In fact, the smallest one, I think, was like 19 inches or 18 inches, came on the 10-inch suic.
Wow.
They just wanted to kill these things.
Yep. That's the thing. And it's just it's one of those baits that you look at and you're like, I don't know why this catches fish, but it does. And it's just that diving action. It just causes a reaction every time it dives down.
Who decided to trim a beer can, shove it in the butt end of a piece of, broomstick that someone broke, and put hooks on it? Oh, look at that. It's one of the best lures ever made.
It's true. And it's been catching fish for 80 years or something. One final bait that is kind of a spring bait, but again, like Andrew said, it's a bait that you can use year round, except it won't work on top of the ice, but the rest of the open water season. I know I talked about this bait last time. This bait here is the Megabass Mag Draft. This is a 6-inch. This is the albino color, the classic white color. You can get these pre-rigged with the treble hook in the bottom and the weight and the harness already in. This is the freestyle. So this is the one that comes just bare plastic. You can also get the 5-inch now freestyle, so you can rig them up too. The 5-inch style, I want to try this coming year. I didn't get my hands on them this year, but that would be an absolute killer size for smallmouth and largemouth. But the 6-inch size is one of those baits like the suic that do not be afraid to chuck this bait. I've caught more 12-inch largemouth on this bait than I can even remember. We were fishing for bass this year, and I love this bait because I think a lot of people don't fish them properly. You have to fish them at a very specific speed. Too fast, it'll like roll on its side. Too slow, the tail doesn't kick. You have to really be cognizant of like the speed you're reeling and just watch to make sure it has a nice tail kick, but it also has a nice head wobble too. Now, I'm not saying specifically the mag draft because there's lots of brands that make big swim baits like this. But my advice is buy a big 5 or 6-inch swim bait. I have this as a line through, so I have a little plastic straw that I jammed in the head. So my line goes through its head, out the top, then I have a BKK treble hook on the top, which is, brutally sharp. But then I also have a nail weight that I glued into the body, so it actually keels good. But that bait, whatever it is about it, especially this white color, it attracts fish from far away. I chucked this thing out. I was fishing this shallow flat for largemouth. And you'll chuck this thing out and just slowly reel it in. And you'll see like a wake from 20 feet away just as a bass swims up fast just to come look at it. And I wouldn't for a second think that you're at a disadvantage using this. You will catch every size of bass on this, from 12 inches to, 5-6 pounds, But you do weed out a lot of the smaller fish. Some of them are crazy, like we said, the small ones. But I did, on some of the trips that I use this, some of the bigger fish of the day were caught on the mag draft. And I think it's just because it's a bigger package, it's a bigger meal. But you do have to be careful because the northerns on muskies love these. So if you're fishing in an area where there's lots of pike or muskies, maybe use, a thin fluorocarbon leader, like 80 pound, or titanium wire, or something like that, because a pike will bite that off in 1 second flat and you'll be crying because these aren't cheap. But that was a great bait. All right, so now we're kind of getting into, maybe early bass season, early musky season, June, July. Do you have any baits there that worked good for you, Andrew?
I do. I actually have got these packs of, first I'll go with that soft plastic. As soon as I can start throwing topwaters, I start throwing topwaters. But I find in the early times, you really have to be fishing quite slow. Like a nice slow presentation, they'll eat stuff off the surface. But they want it to be more finesse of a presentation. So one of the things was these are the Z-Man pop shads. I was able to find some of these. And this is the small, I think it's a 3.5 inch. I forgot 4 inch. These are the 4-inch pop shads. I think they come in 5 or 5.5 inch as well. But these I just found that are perfect size. And I Was using it, first of all, Texas rigged and with a single hook. And I did have some success with it, but again, it's a lot of that TPE plastic, which is great for floating and stuff like that. But it was bunching up really bad, I found on that single hook a lot of the time. So for weedless, it can be used, but in the spring, because there wasn't a lot of surface weeds, I was actually rigging this with a treble hook, just hanging off the bottom, kind of like how Jesse had the mag draft rigged up. So I'd put a line through, I'd actually just use a little hook, jab it through, and kind of hook the line over like a needle and just pull it back in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have that treble hook just rigged up in the bottom, kind of about halfway down the body. And this would still like easily float and support that treble hook. And then my hookup ratio was like every single time at that point.
Yeah.
But fishing around like timber and stuff like that, without having, multiple hanging, dangling treble hooks, the treble hook's always nicely in the bait, secured. So I did find that I felt a bit more confident tossing this around some of that timber structure in the spring. But that worked well, as, you can walk the dog with these things. You can fish it just like a regular popper, but it has, like, again, being that soft plastic, it can be a nice natural presentation when you start using it in that time. So that I had a lot of success with for that early bass season when I wanted to start throwing topwater, because I always want to throw topwater.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah. It's true though. Like, you got the early season, the bass are done spawning, and they have that post-spawn funk where they kind of get just a little bit picky and sulky. And you will, in our experience anyway, you'll catch way more fish if you just slightly downsize and go slow, and sometimes annoyingly slow. Like, I don't like doing that. Andrew, he likes it. So sometimes I'll cast 4 times and he's still in his first cast. I'm like, what are you doing?
And then I catch one. Sometimes.
Usually. My topwater is one that I actually did really good on. And again, it's sticking with the Z-Man theme. We always talk about these. This is the goat toads. See this one, the leg's all gimpy because it probably was sitting next to another piece of plastic that you're not supposed to. These aren't supposed to touch regular plastic because it melts it. This particular one, I had tied on pretty much on a guest rod all year. So I have a 7-foot medium heavy spinning reel with 15-pound braid on it. And that is my guest rod. That is, someone that can't use a bait caster, that's the rod they get. If we're going bass fishing, that's the rod they get. If we're going salmon fishing in my boat, that's the rod they get. It doesn't matter. That's the rod they get because it's not going to break. It's still sensitive and light. And it's 15-pound braid. So generally speaking, whatever bait we're using, it'll be fine. So we were using this a lot of times. Particular time that I think I talked about it earlier in the year, but we were fishing Lake Erie, Long Point. I was with my brother-in-law. He doesn't really fish. He doesn't fish at all. Just with me. So we took him out, and if you've ever fished Lake Erie, it's very shallow. It's very different from where we fish. It was just weird. It's all sand bottom, and then there's just like big reed islands everywhere. Some of the areas I was fishing was like a foot of water, and I was like, how is there, like, I know bass can be shallow, but it doesn't look like there'd be bass anywhere. It's just weird. But the bass would be like undercut underneath the reeds, and you'd be chucking down like sand beside the reeds, and a bass would just come out of nowhere from the reeds, swim out, grab your bait, and swim back underneath. You're like, oh, like, holy smokes, right? You're not expecting it. So anyway, I took my brother-in-law spinning rod. The good thing about the goat toad is you rig it on a 3 or 4 EWG hook, and when a fish grabs it, it does not take a lot of effort for that hook to pop up. It's not like when you're frog fishing with like a regular hollow body with 2 hooks that you have to stick in the fish's mouth. You need like a heavier rod. This is totally fine to use on a spinning rod easily. Like, you can use a medium power spinning rod. If you set the hook hard enough with braid, you're good. You're fine. It's just your only limitation is how far into the cover you throw it. So anyway, my brother-in-law is casting, and he cast down this like long, like little, channel. It looked like an area where like a duck boat would go down. It was like super shallow. And this bass came up and just blew up on it. And I told him, he's smart. I was like, when fish blows up on it, wait before you set the hook, something I don't do. And the fish blew up on it, and he was just like, wait, sets the hook as hard as he could. Because I told him, like, set the hook as hard as you can. But he actually waited and then set the hook. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I've never seen that before. Anyway, he got it in. It was a nice bass. And, it's just one of those baits that, again, you don't have to be a beginner to throw this. This is one of my favorite soft plastic frogs to use because the action has little paddle tails on the back. So as you reel it in, it has that little skittering action. I feel like just the subtle bubbling of it going across the surface it's a lot different than like a whopper plopper that's obnoxious. It's just subtle. So on
Mhm.
those days when it's like flat calm, me and Andrew usually we're like, oh, goat toad time. We're just like, I
Yep.
already have one tied on. So that was a good one. All right, what's your next bait, Andrew?
Next bait, my last topwater. Yep, last topwater. I had to double check my my terms there, making sure I have another topwater sitting on the table beside me. But this one is, we actually talked about this kind of in depth in another podcast as well. But this is the Forensi mouse from Lunker Hunt. And these things, this one is, as you can tell, has been pretty used. A lot of the flocking has gone missing on it just because it's been thrown so much and has caught me multiple fish. And like I had predicted, this has now become one of my favorite hollow body topwaters of all time, I would say. And a couple of the reasons is the hooks on it are huge hooks for one, really huge.
Gigantic.
The bait compresses really well to open up, all the hook gap right there. They're very, very sharp. They have that like smooth coating on them. Like everything is working in favor for these hooks for a good hookup ratio, and that's what I experienced with it. I had a very good hookup ratio with these for a hollow body topwater. I was pleasantly surprised and happy with that. I was also shocked how the hook points are like almost slightly exposed, but the little ears they have in this mouse seem to deflect the weeds. So it was like incredibly weedless, even like on top of slop and like through reeds. I was super impressed with it. It has a tungsten weight. This thing casts a mile. The flocking absorbs water as you cast. Like it goes. And if you don't know how to walk the dog, especially with a topwater bait, like with a hollow body bait, some of them can be challenging. Some, like the Terminator walking frog, yes, they're designed for it. They're easier. This thing wants to walk. If you just start like tapping your rod, not knowing what you're doing, you're gonna get some walking action in there somewhere.
Yeah, they're so easy to walk. Like so easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one, I guess downside I would say is it did, after fishing for a while, I found it is filling up with water a fair bit quicker than it did when I first pulled out of the package. But again, that's most hollow bodies will have that experience. But again, this thing, I wasn't too concerned with it having like a lot of water in it because it was still floating. It's just cast further at that point. So it wasn't, it wasn't pulling it back and like, oh, it's submerged now by the end. And like, I could see when it's getting lower, feeling it getting heavy. And then I just, it was just a quick squeeze and then it's empty again.
Yeah, it wasn't like every cast you have to squeeze it out.
No.
Yeah.
And again, like you could do, even if you had water in it, you can still keep fishing it until you couldn't fish it. But again, it would have to be pretty much right full of water for that to be the case, which I had never gotten into that point. So that's been this year. This was like my main go-to hollow body. I know I threw my other like favorites and stuff, but I found myself, I kept going back to this. And I've got a few of these now in my tackle box, but I kept going back to this.
It was one or two trips. I know there was one day that me and Andrew went out and we just got these. And I know Andrew was excited about them. So I was like, let's just fish these mice. And we did. It was a slow day at first, but then eventually I think we got like 13.
Yeah.
And it was just like a day after work, like where we just went up after work for 4 hours.
Like a whole day. Yeah, we went for like a couple hours after work.
No, it was just a good day because like we went back and tried to do it again a few weeks later and we only caught like 3. But like that day I was like,
that was also a cold front.
Yeah, the hookup ratio was very good. I think we were at like probably 95% or 90% at least of the fish guaranteed hooked on it. So yeah, great bait. We like them. Lunker Hunt. What is it? The Frenzy mouse. Yeah. On the topic of topwater, like hollow body frogs, I'll just go through mine quick. These are 3 of my favorite hollow body baits that I've been using for a few years. The Sprinkler frog, actually, I just started using this year. But this is the Perfect Jig, Perfect Frog. I don't know. It's just, the reason I like these is this is pretty much just a standard frog. It looks a lot like the live target frog. It's got good hooks. So every time you go to like the spring fishing show or something, Brendan at the Perfect Jig, he always has like a deal. Like, buy one, get one free. So I'm like, okay. So I buy 2 or 3. I lose a bunch to musky. You can see like the paint wearing off on the bottom of this one. I actually caught my biggest largemouth of the year on this, a 5-pounder on this one in the Quarthas. Just a great bait, but that's just like a good bait. It walks good, it casts far, works okay on the slop, but for a slop frog, I like these Scum Frog Trophy series. They've got a very flat bottom. It's kind of like the Scum Frog, but this one's even cheaper. I think it's only like $11, something like that. Really big hooks, just a great frog. Love it. But the Sprinkler frog,
I really like those.
Yeah, we talked with Tackle Bros this year. That was a really cool episode. where we
Mm-hmm.
talked with Travis at Tackle Bros, and he recommended the Sprinker frog, which is it's a hollow body frog, but it's got like
That's from
a boot
Teckle,
tail.
right?
Yeah, Teckle. It's got like a boot tail on a swivel. So you pretty much just reel it in, and the back tail, he's like, this is a weedless whopper plopper. It sounds the same, and it does. The first day I used this was on Long Point on Lake Erie. And I was like, okay, it's a lot of open water, like around reeds. So I was like, I don't need to like fish slop. So I was just like, I'm just casting retrieve this down like these reed lines. And I caught my biggest fish of the trip came on this bait. And I was just fishing it the whole day. I was like, this is amazing. And the hooks, if you look at it, you're like, okay, these hooks, they don't look very big. And they're kind of like, they don't give me a lot of confidence in the hookup ability. Because like we're used to like, oh, there's big hooks, big hookup ability. So I was very skeptical. Amazing hookup ability, like amazing. I was surprised because after that first fish, I hooked it and it was like right in the roof of the mouth. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I kept fishing it, and almost every fish that blew up on it, I caught. I was like, okay, this is weird because I usually pull it right out of their mouth. Then we were fishing in the Kawarthas too. I pulled it out a few times, caught a bunch of fish on it, and then we lost a musky, and then I was like afraid. So I took this off and tied on a cheaper frog because these are like 20 something bucks. I was like, oh, I don't want a musky. How many musky did we have bite us off this year? It was
I didn't
not
have
our worst
a
year.
bite off. We were fishing and we were using some topwater frogs. I actually, as an honorable mention, the Zoo Wake from Snagproof is another one. It has like a paddle tail on the back of a hollow body frog, essentially. And I was fishing that one, had some good hits in that. And we, in one evening, you and I was using that. You're using a couple of different frogs, and we had what, 5 or 6 muskie just like launch themselves out of the water at this. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
thank goodness I didn't lose it.
I know. Whenever we go fishing for muskie, we catch nothing. Or you catch bass on muskie lures. And when you go fishing for bass, you catch muskie. It's kind of, I think we should trick the fish by saying that we're fishing for bass when we go muskie fishing and we catch muskie. See if it works next year.
Maybe. I was thinking too, the Teckle has some really cool stuff. Again, a bit more on like the bougier side of, especially if you're going for the frogs and whatnot. But they have, I'm not going to say like gimmicky frogs, but like they have little differences, like that one with the boot tail, but they do it really, really well. There's another one that I haven't caught on it because I only used it a couple times because I was worried about losing it. But it has a couple whittle leaf blades in the back instead of like rubber legs.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like a flap tail. It's like ting 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 ting. Those like little like tinkling noises as you're reeling it in. And I think that would be amazing for like a day where the bass are aggressive and they want something that's like more noisy and flash. But that thing is again weedless. You can fish that over top of your weeds where you couldn't be tossing a chatterbait or a spinnerbait or anything like that. And now you have flash, you have noise, you have vibration coming from a hollow body frog. So I think it just needs to be the right day for that one, but I think that would be lights out if they're aggressive and looking for more of a flash in action.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very impressed. Again, you can spend $5 on a weed. You can buy weedless frogs at Dollarama if you want, or you can spend $30 on one. And we've tried a bunch because we really like frog fishing. I mean, if you really think of it, these Z-Man goat toads are probably the cheapest frog because you get 4 in a pack for like what, $12. So it's like they're only a few bucks each. But the Teckle stuff, it is expensive, yes. But hear me out. It is so perfectly designed. Like Teckle is all they make is topwater lures, and they specialize in topwater frogs. If you fish topwater a lot, like if you have a frog always tied on, I highly recommend just buy one Teckle and just try it out. Because like I was super like dead set. Like I had certain favorite weedless frogs. I'm like, oh, that's all you need. As soon as I tried Teckle stuff, I was like, I'm rethinking everything because like they work so good and the hookup ratio is very good. It just hurts when you buy them, and it hurts when a muskie bites it off.
Yes.
But I have one more bait I want to talk about, and I did really well at Long Point in Lake Erie, as well as over the years in Kawarthas and all the different areas that we fish. We always have swim jigs tied on. Me and Andrew are big fans. Me and Andrew have caught, pike, muskie, bass. Andrew caught a walleye 2 years ago on a swim jig. Just they catch everything. It's just a jig, right? But it reminded me because Andrew was saying that he really likes the Crush City, the Mare swim baits. These things here. And I'll tell you why I picked these up. Not because Andrew was having success, but because one of my favorite swim baits, and we've recommended this one a lot, is the Storm Largo Shad. Now, the Largo Shad is kind of like a thicker shad-shaped body, but it's slightly more rigid plastic, so it has a really good, like, aggressive kick to it. the problem with the Largo shad is I'm not sure if they discontinued it or they just don't come in very bassy colors. They come in like pearl, like white, and like herring, just like weird saltwater colors. I'm like, can we get a green pumpkin? They're like, oh, we don't make that. So Crush City, which by the way is Storm, Rapala owns Storm, so it's like okay, it's like the same thing. But the mare is exactly what I wanted. So as soon as it came out, I was like, okay, it's the right profile. This particular one is the 4-inch. I know they also have like a 3 or 3.5-inch one as well, but the 4-inch one is great. It has a really good kick. So what that makes me think is, I'm like, if it has a really good kick, it's going to go great on a swim jig, right? So I paired it up. Again, we have tons of swim jigs we like. This particular one is a Freedom Tackle swim jig. I'm not overly picky with swim jigs. As long as it has a really good hook on it, I'm good. But you can see that one's kind of a bluegill color, and it's got that mare swim bait on it. It's a bit of a bigger profile bait, but it has, when you reel this thing in, it does have a lot of kick, and it actually makes the swim bait kind of rock when you reel it in, and then every so often you give it a pop, you know? I did really good on long point with that, chucking it through the reeds. Great bait. And the plastic is pretty resilient. Again, we're used to using a lot of Z-Man stuff like me and Andrew, and you could glue on a paddle tail and it lasts all year, you know? It's like, oh, it's fine. But you will go through these. They're not TPE, but the rubber's pretty durable, I'd say, right, Andrew?
Like I said, like this one here, I think I've caught at least 5 bass and like 3 pike on this one here. And again, like, yeah, it's got a bit of tearing and stuff. It wants to slide down the hook, but again, the tail's all intact. A bit of super glue and that thing would be totally fine to keep fishing it and just fix it. You know, where it's sliding off the hook.
Mine on, yeah.
Yeah,
they're durable.
I'm surprised at how durable they are, considering, like you said, I'm so used to like TPE stuff. I was shocked to go back to, or not to go back, but to use another type of plastic and be like, yeah, that thing has actually held up really well considering it's landed multiple fish. And I was like,
yeah,
I'm used to them breaking after the first one.
I know, right? Or the tail getting bit off by a rock bass or something. Like, oh, come on. Honestly, I was very skeptical. Like, I'm not like a tackle snob, but like, I was skeptical with the Crush City stuff. I was like, you know, what, you know, how is it better than anything else? But I bought a few things, and everything I bought from them has been good. Like, I like it. I will buy it again. That's kind of the quality that it is. And the molds are good, and they have a lot of baits that are like not like specific for Canada, but like stuff that you're like, okay, that color is legit perfect for here.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can't go through this episode without talking about our buddy Wham. Well, I like to call him Wham. His name is Wes. At Wham Baits.
There's have 2 you baits in particular. Color he has?
The camo color?
Yeah.
The camouflage color, yeah. Check it out.
That looks legit.
Yeah.
I'm excited for more baits.
I have 2 particular baits that I'm not joking when I say this. They will always be in my box when I'm fishing. Doesn't matter what I'm fishing. Well, it does matter slightly. I'm not going to bring these musky fishing or something, but if I'm fishing for bass, walleye, or mostly bass and walleye, let's just go there. So on those particular days when I'm fishing for bass or walleye, these 2 baits will 100% be either tied on or ready to get tied on at any time. And this one, it's actually a jacked up jig head with the underspin. This is, I think it's a 3/16. I also have the 1/4 ounce. Nice little, you know, silver blade underneath. And then this here is the Wham Baits Swimpleton, which is a little swim bait. I think it's like 3.25, something like that. 3.25 inch, I guess you would say. But that little size there, that is a snack for any fish. I don't care what fish, smallmouth, largemouth, pike. Pike will eat these 100%. But walleye too, absolutely insane. This one I fished so much that legit the eyeball popped out of the jig head. I was like, oh, dang it. No, it's a one-eyed Willie. But they're great. And the thing is I like about, just speaking about this jacked up jigs underspin, is look how far back the hook goes. It's kind of a longer shank jig head. I love that so much. It doesn't really affect the wobble of the bait because it's kind of a rigider bait, and you get a lot of tail kick out of these too, right? But I do notice a lot of the jig heads, they're small hooks at the top. I don't know. I just have more confidence in having a slightly longer bait or hook. And then you can also use a longer swim bait on this, on the same jig head, and be totally fine. But the Swimpleton, I just find it's a good size. That's just good year round for anything, right? The other one, this will not come as a surprise to anyone. This particular one, you cannot not have because they're so cool. You know what I'm talking about.
The Wobblins.
The Wobblins. This particular color, though, you have to get. It's AOA approved. It's the best. It's green pumpkin purple flash or something like that. It's green pumpkin. It's got this like iridescent like purple sheen on it. It looks very bluegilly, like pumpkin seedy. Like this just looks super tasty and natural. This I always have hooked on. And the way that I fish this, either weightless, but I'm not patient like Andrew. I like to get those weedless jig head, like the wacky jigs, just with like maybe like a 16th, just to give it a little extra fall. I like to fish slightly faster, and it really accentuates the wobble. Because if you notice on the wobbling, it's kind of thinner, and then it gets fat. So it does have a lot of shimmy on the way down. But with that jig, it really has even more shimmy. So, I mean, you can't not have a wacky bait with you when you're fishing, especially for bass. But the wobbling it's my favorite one for sure. It catches, and they smell good. I told Wham that he should make like some kind of, bait sauce and call it Wham sauce. What do you think? Isn't that the best? It's like, are the fish finicky? Put on some Wham sauce.
Wham it up.
And you see Gordon Ramsay, where's the Wham sauce? Wes is probably so mad at me right now.
This bait's so fresh, it's whamming the wham.
See if we can get Gordon Ramsay to sponsor Wham Baits. That'd be amazing.
He likes fishing, actually.
Really?
We should try and get him on.
Get him on as a guest. That'd be amazing. It's not going to happen. We can't even get Bob Azumi on this podcast. I've never asked him, but I'm just assuming. Maybe next year. You never know. Do you have any more soft plastics?
I have one more.
Ooh.
So this is the Lunker Hunt bento baits. Nice, small little minnow profile. This is like their, I forget what color it is. It's like coming like a washed out perch. It's called perch. There we go. I also have the black ones that kind of just these are called parrot, but they look like a dark bodied minnow kind of thing.
I caught on those, yeah.
But they all have this like iridescent like plastic fabric inside that gives them like a really nice like minnow flash. But I was fishing these. We're using them for crappie in the spring, but also I wanted to try them just in like a nice small finesse like ball head jig on like BFS or like a small spinning setup on those really finicky days. And that's one of those like small baits you can just put on a small little ball head jig, or like a small little swim jig or something like that, like a nice small one, 1/4 ounce or 3/16 whatever, just to get it down a bit deeper if you want, or 1/8. And this thing, it's a killer. Like it's less than a snack, more like a morsel.
Yeah.
But the perch, it's very like natural. This color here is very natural, but I like it because it's got that perfect minnow profile. Like it has a long body. It doesn't have too much like kicking action because again, it's not a paddle tail. But if you just start like my attempt at strolling, whatever, it's like wiggling your rod tip as you bring it in, but it gives a lot of like tail kicking action. Even if you like have it down on the bottom jigging, like that tail is quite active while it's sitting at the bottom. These are awesome for like drop shot and all that stuff as well. But I like fishing them kind of just like a nice like hopping retrieve, like almost like a jerkbait retrieve, and with a small like jig head. And that I had good success with that for those really finicky days. And I mean everything, primarily small bass, but everything would hit it. Like when they wouldn't touch other stuff, they're kind of shut down. A small presentation like that, and this is just a very good example of one that's made really well. They won an ICAST for like best lure or whatever, or soft plastic when they came out. But these things, they are nice.
Yeah. I forgot about that day we went out crappie fishing and we whacked a bunch of fish on those. They look good. They look natural. So I didn't expect us not to catch anything on it, but I was like, oh, never tried these before. And we actually caught a bunch of fish on them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have a few, I'll go through quick, but a few soft plastics that I did really well. Like we're going through summer now. One bait that I wanted to try out, again, it's a little pricey. I hate spending money on like high-end soft plastics because you just blow through them. Like if you buy a high-end like jerkbait or something, you're like, okay, it's going to last unless you snag or like get bit off. But soft plastics, they are going to rip and break, but they work really good. So we all heard about like the poop bait, like the poop baits from Japan.
Yes.
I'm not that crazy. I don't like spending that much money. So I was very excited to try these out. This is the Yamamoto Baits Yama Tanuki. They are basically a poop bait. This is the ASMR of me opening the package. Oh yeah. But I bought a few different colors of these and they're very,
for that,
just a weird bait with a little pudgy tail. It just looks like a...
What's it called? Tanuki?
Yama Tanuki.
What are the bait called? Yeah.
Yeah.
It does look like a tanuki tail, kind of like a raccoon.
Yeah, it does. I guess really, if you think of it, like if you squint your eyes, it looks like a weird plastic raccoon. But they don't look like much. But when you Texas rig these and chuck them out, they're full of salt. That's why they don't last. But the action is insane. So when you chuck them out, they actually like they sink horizontally like this. Like they don't go straight down like this. They literally go like this. And as it's sinking, this little tail is just wiggling. And I didn't believe, I saw the videos on YouTube and I was like, okay. I didn't believe it would be that good. So I bought a pack. I bought this pack because it's called a blue craw or something. It's kind of like a green pumpkin with a little bit of blue. And then I liked them so much, I went out and I bought like another pack of like kind of a crayfish color one because it actually does. And I think this is what they're supposed to be as crayfish imitations because they sink down and then they basically like just sit on the bottom and then you kind of like jerk the rod and it twitches up like a crayfish shooting off the bottom and then it twitches down. You see a crayfish on the bottom crawling and then you try to grab it and you know how it like kicks its like fin and it shoots off backwards and then it kind of floats down onto a rock. This bait does that exactly. And I smacked fish on them. Like it hurts me though, because the bags are like $12 and you go through, you catch, honestly, I'll tell you, like it's dumb, but you'll catch like maybe like 2 or 3 fish on them. And then they're like starting to get chotched up. So if you buy these, just be prepared for the pain of buying them and then losing them. And then rock bass love these too. I was fishing this one spot and I was getting bites. I was like, oh man, like there's fish. And every other cast I was catching are like a 7-inch rock bass on that thing. I was like, dude, you're destroying my baits. I don't mind blowing baits if I'm catching quality fish on them, but no offense to the rock bass, they gotta chill. So those were really good. That was kind of a splurge for me. The way I feel is like we have so many baits. Like you see me and Andrew, tons of baits. And I'm at the point where I'm like, if I go to the tackle shop, I'm like, I want a lot of things. Like I know me and Andrew are like, oh, I want that, I want that. But then we're like, do I need that? Realistically, like sadly, you're like, no, I don't. You know, I'm not going to buy that because I already have 5 of these or 6 of these. So instead of buying something I already have, I will just buy a painfully expensive soft plastic once in a while and then suffer. And again, I'm not like a bass pro. I'm not fishing like 4 days a week. I might use 1 or 2 of these bags a year and be like, oh, that sucks. But they're really good. If you have like a bass tournament or like a competition against one of your friends or something, buy a bag of those. You will not regret it.
Yeah. Those are good. There's a few that I want to try that are like that really dense salt impregnated plastic where you don't even need to weight, just rig it weightless because it's weighted enough.
And I'll tell you, if you have to buy a poop bait, these are the least offensive ones, the Yama Tanuki. The other ones, like the cover scat, the original Depths cover scat, it actually looks like a piece of poop. And then they have other ones that look like other unmentionable things, which we won't mention because they look like blur them out.
Pieces of human anatomy.
Yes.
But somehow, they're not branded as such. I'm like, we all know what you designed that after. So, anywho.
But they
any poop. So, did you want to move into more of the fall side now?
Okay, let me go through like 3 baits quick that worked really good for me. This was a year kind of where, again, me and Andrew, like we fish a lot of the same places every year, like the same spaces in the spring, the summer, fall. So we like trying new stuff. So this year was one of the first years that I tried. This is the Beast Coast Miyagi swimmer. And it's like a perfect bluegill size. It's almost 5-inch long. It's a paddle tail swim bait. I've got a 6/0 weighted beast hook on it. This thing absolutely slayed largemouth for me this year. Like you can see this one is a bit chewed up. I blew through another one too. I've actually glued like the tips of the nose. Once they rip out, I'll get a lighter and like light the nose so it kind of like solidifies again. You chuck this out, reel it in through reeds, lily pads, crushed fish on it. I did lose one to a musky though, or a pike. I'm not sure what it was, but awesome baits. Very cool. The other bait that I wanted to mention, and Travis mentioned this bait to us when we were talking about jigs, is the Kai-Tak jigs. Or I forget how you pronounce it actually. K-Tak. That's how you actually pronounce it. But I'm just gonna say K-Tak. But it's just it's just called a casting jig, and they're about $7, $7 or $8, which is very reasonable. It's got a really sharp hook on it. I bought a bunch of green pumpkin ones. I bought a bunch of black, and they were really good for me. If you have to buy one jig, these are hand-tied skirts, really good heads, super sharp Japanese hooks, really nice like density skirts, really good jigs. 100% would buy that, especially for the price, like $8 for a Japanese jig. Amazing. Another one, the Mega Bass. What is this craw one called? The sleeper craw. these are really crazy cool baits. They're heavy. They're like 5/8 of an ounce. So they have a really slow fall. And for once, they're actually like an Elastec material. So they actually stretch, and it's got a hook buried in the top. And long story short, I was missing a lot of fish on these because I would set the hook. But what you got to do is feel the bite, pull into the fish, and then pull back really hard. If you set the hook, because the hook it is not a big hook, it's pretty small, it just pops out of their mouth. So I was losing fish like crazy. And then I YouTubed it. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then I found out what I was doing wrong. I was being dumb. You don't set the hook super hard. You pull really hard and it sets hook. And then the last bait, I was fishing with my nephew. He's 12. He's really getting into fishing, which is my fault for sure, but I'm glad. He wanted this year, we went to a lake, it was full of bass. The smallmouth, not big ones, but like full of bass and rock bass. And he wanted to use lures because normally I just set him up with a bobber and a worm because he's a kid. But now he's a teenager, so I'm like, all right. So I set him up with a Ned rig. I was like, catch fish on Ned rigs, easy, right? So the one that we were using, I'm sure you've seen these. This is the Z-Man. I don't even know what it is called. It's the little Ned craw.
Craws.
The TRD craw. And I've got that on just a little, 3/16 head. These things absolutely clean up fish. I actually caught a bunch of like nice 3.5 pound smallmouth on it too when we were up on that trip. But most of the fish were, 12 to 14, 15 inches. But dude, we absolutely smoked fish. The only times that we lost these bait is when we snagged it on a rock and couldn't get it up. But you would catch tons of rock bass, tons of smallmouth, and these things stretch like crazy. Use the same bait for like multiple days in a row is amazing. So that is a great bait. Cannot forget about that one because I hate using finesse baits. Andrew knows this. That's why he catches more fish than me sometimes. But that is one I love. Anyway, that's all my summer baits. Did you notice we did not talk about chatterbaits?
Yeah, I made a concerted effort to not. But I also, like, even this year,
I have them right here.
I fished a lot. While fishing, I tried to use other things besides chatterbaits. Just make sure I'm not becoming a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
To
be fair,
make use of their stuff.
We did smack them on chatterbaits this year.
Yes, when I still use them, I still caught.
Yeah. But if you do want to hear about chatterbaits, we have whole episodes about fishing chatterbaits. So I'll link that below in the bio. We have a whole episode all about chatterbaits, what rods to use, what lines to use, what trailers and everything to use. But yeah, we could talk for a whole episode. We should probably do that again next year. But yeah, chatterbaits are fantastic. All right. What do you got for fall?
So for fall, my best producing multi-species fall bait for when everything's putting on a feed. Bass, they're keying on bigger baits. Pike are too. And in reality, it's a small one for musky, but the junior, the Shadzilla Junior. And I caught, even like late summer, like not even like really cold at all. It was still like hot summer temperatures. On this one, I crushed like a few like 3+ pound smallies at the cottage feeding on these things, like just juicy footballs of bass, And then what I started doing as soon as fall hit, I wanted a slightly bigger presentation, but with the same bait, because I do love this size. I love the rolling action of it. And again, for pike, I didn't want to go too big with, like, again, the 12-inch or the 10-inch size, but I just put one of Mike's bladed arms on there from Waterwolf Lures. So again, this is the Shedzilla Junior from Waterwolf, and this is one of his bladed arms. And these things are fantastic. Just to give a bit extra flash, you can reel them in a little bit slower. So as water temps started to drop in the fall, having this on there, I still use like a mid-depth bait, but with the small blade on it, it would still bring it up to, you could still reel it in fairly quick if you wanted, nice and shallow, or you could reel it in a bit slower, but it still would only be like a mid-depth kind of range bait. But that one I had a lot of success on for especially pike, but I was surprised the amount of bass were still crushing this thing. And again, go to hookup ratio on them too.
Yeah.
So that was my best producing bait was, in a variety of colors. This is the one I had rigged up on the blade. Yeah, I had a good success with this year and well into the fall. This was my kind of go-to bait that I was using.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so the one Andrew has in his hands is the new solid body, which is not available to purchase. Thankfully, I don't know why. Mike gave us a few of them this year when he got the prototypes done. So some of these are actually prototypes. They don't even have the actual legit harness in them. He like hand made them. That's why he so begrudgingly gave them to us. He's like, oh, this took forever to make. But you've probably seen, we talk about these forever. This is the hollow body. They still work great. If you got them in your box, absolutely fantastic. I have a whole bunch of them because like they work for everything, but we love them for pike fishing. But the new solid body, similar profile, a lot more wobble, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's the same bait, but it's very different. And the difference is too, the OG has the hook on the top, like a jig runs through the bait, and then one treble on the bottom. A lot of guys apparently wanted 2 treble hooks though, just for hookup ratio. So the new one has 2 trebles, and this particular one, I actually caught a decent sized pike was it during practice or after the next day on the pike tournament? This particular one is, I think it's a shallow or a mid, but yeah, they've got a really good kick. This size though, like it's what, 7.5 inch. It's not huge. You can fish this, like Andrew said, bass will hit these. It's a great size for pike. It's a great size for muskie. If the muskie are being finicky, chuck a smaller bait. You don't want to have to be chucking the big ones all the time. Or if it's early in the season, chuck this. I know a lot of guys catch big muskie even well into the fall using one of these, especially with a spinner blade arm like Andrew had. But if you are looking to get some of these solid bodies, this year we have CanCast coming up. But CanCast is now going to be with Muskie Odyssey on the same day. So you can pick some of these up. Hopefully, I'm hoping Mike has these ready for Odyssey. I'm sure.
I think he said he was hoping to, because we talked to him recently. We were out fishing and stopped in to say hi.
Yeah,
well, you heard that. Actually, we were going to interview him, but he was too busy that day. But part of the reason is he's pouring a lot of things like this.
Yeah. So definitely check out the booth, because if he has these solid bodies, 100% you need to get at least 4, at least 2. Yeah. But yeah, no, they're absolutely fantastic. I was very happy he gave us a few, because the ones that he gave us, we were excited because like we're huge Shadzilla Junior fans. So the new solid body, we're like, okay, how much better could it be? Like it's already really good, but they're actually quite a bit better. I'm not just saying that. I will be buying more, sadly. Yes. But yeah. So now we're into the fall, right? So I know a lot of you guys don't musky fish, so you're probably like, oh, Jesse's talking about musky fishing again. No, boring. But I'll be brief, because like I'll tell you, we didn't catch a ton of muskie this year. We caught a decent amount, but the baits that I caught them on were all the same. I only caught muskie on a few different lures because I use those same lures all the time. I guess that's how it works, right? Like Andrew, he chucks suics all the time. Guess what he caught his fish on? Suics, right? Because they were tied on. But for me, it was my main 2 baits was glide baits and rubber. That was the main deal. It seemed like every day we went out was just the worst conditions where you had to use something that caused a reaction or fished really slow. I don't recall a day where I was like, oh man, they're chasing. It just seemed like every day we went out, it was just really hard. And when the day's hard, glide baits are the best. Like they just cause a reaction bite. The bait that I caught my first muskie of the year on was, of course, classic hellhound. This is a glide bait. It's not a big one. I think this one is like a 6-inch body with like a twister tail in the back. But I actually put a weight kit in this one. So I have a screw and weight that I added to this just so I can fish it slightly deeper. Me and Andrew were just talking before the podcast about how a lot of glide baits, they have a very slow fall. And you're like, okay, that's good a lot of the times. But sometimes you want to get that bait a little deeper, especially when it's like really sunny or something, the fish drop down a bit. So I did add this weight. The one thing I will say, if you do add weight to a glide bait, if you add too much weight, it can really affect the action. Make sure you have some smaller weights, try it out beside the boat. Just make sure that it doesn't mess up the action too much. I caught a really nice muskie in a river this year on this particular one. This is the golden carp color or something like that. Prism carp. It's a cool color. Every time I catch a muskie, I carve a little, a slice into the top of the bait so I can keep track of how many muskie I've caught on it. So this one has 1 catch on it. That was the first muskie of the year. But every other muskie that I caught on glide baits after that was on the Chaos Tackle Slim Shum. You can see there's a few lines up here that I carved in, I think 3 or 4. 4, yeah. And that's been a great bait. This particular one, it's a bit bigger. I use it mostly in the fall. But Andrew saw one day, I caught 2 nice fish on this. They love it. It's a great bait. Very slow fall, which makes it good in cold water. And we're actually going out. If you're listening to this on Sunday, hopefully we are musky fishing right now. And hopefully I will be chucking this exact bait if the lake doesn't freeze by then. It's our last trip of the year. But I'm excited to fish that because that was a great bait. And I will continue to use it. Actually, I have a tooth mark in it, which I'm really happy about. There's actually like a full out a tooth got stuck inside of it, and I pulled it out, and it was like this little tooth from a muskie. It wasn't even a big muskie, but accomplishment.
So I have one last. I'm not sure how many baits you have left, Jesse.
I have one.
Me too. So still on that musky theme. This is a new bait for me this year, and again, I haven't been out musky fishing much this year. I think I only got out twice to be targeting musky, and I still caught, so I was happy about it. I'm like, I want to get one. I need to get one under the belt. Can't go a year without catching one. And I bought this bait. I've been looking for it for a while, and we found it at a tackle store. And this is the Musky Innovations Dying Dog. And this was it 14 inches, I think? Yeah. It's a 14-inch bait, which, again, if you're not a musky angler, you think, that's huge. But it's not very thick. It's actually like fairly light, easy to toss for one this size. This is another dive and rise, but I wanted it because it's an extremely slow rise. So when you pull this thing, it sits head down, which is nice. It kind of sits like this in the water, and then you dive it, and it's ready to go. Dives down, the tail like flaps behind it, and then it just like slowly like raises up, ever so slowly, and you can fish it again. So it was really good for the fall time when you want something that's a really slow presentation, but you want something that they actually want to feed on. I was casting some other larger baits that I have and started hurting my shoulder. You're fishing out of a canoe. I'm like, this is a lot of weight to just kind of do a pendulum cast. And like, I feel like I'm going to fall backwards trying to toss some of these things. But this one is nice and easy to use. And this is what I caught my muskie this year on was this thing.
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love this thing. This one is, I think it's, I don't know what color. It's orange and gold, but it spoke to me in the store and it said, I'm the one. It turns out it was.
Yep. And then I went back and I picked one up too, and I just got like a walleye.
He saw me catch one. He's like, well, time for me to get one. Jesse told me about them. So it's not like I was fishing a weird bait. He's like, he wanted one, but I bit the bullet a bit before him. And then as soon as I caught,
I was like, hey, Andrew, I know you like weird baits. I found one for you. Why don't you test it out to see if it's good? That's my technique. Yeah, I did not catch on this. This is definitely one I would... Not yet. No, like I saw Andrew catch, and the thing is that muskie caught on it was a nice fish, but it was a small fish.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't this is a 14 or 13 inch bait, but Andrew's fish was like 35 inch.
4, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Like it always blows my mind in the fall. You don't have to worry. Like this big bait, that is fine. If you want to catch a 40-inch fish, no problem. Because you can catch a 30-inch fish on this. Yeah, it's a big
longer
bait.
Than from the tip of my head to the bottom of my beard. And I got a pretty decent growth going on right now in my beard, so.
Yeah.
But anyway. That's something I definitely would... I did modify it a bit. I teed up the back hook, and I put one of these magnetic kind of screw-in magnets, just to hold that hook there in the back so it wouldn't tangle into the tail too much. Yeah. But yeah, this, I want to get another color later on, for sure. I want to get another one, like a nice dark color, something like that, because I love the action. I like fishing slow. I like fishing like the Suics and stuff like that when it has a really slow rise. And again, that's why I wanted this one for its extremely slow rise. You can fish, if you fish this quick without giving it time to rise up, you can get this thing down like 8 feet easily. Like I was surprised how deep this thing wanted to go with no weight kit on it. You can easily put a weight kit on it if you wanted to. But if you let it sit, you can really just let this thing like sit right in front if you want to really slow, like dead stick it for a muskie. And that's, yeah. I'm really excited about this bait. I caught on it. It's a good bait for me now.
Yeah.
But I want to get
It's a cool bait. I like it. One tip for that bait is it does have a very slow rise, but if you do use like say like a 12-inch fluorocarbon leader, it will actually sink.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found that I modified mine, I put a slightly smaller hook in the back, and then I used a wire jerkbait leader, which is a lot lighter than fluorocarbon, and it did eventually rise. So if you do use a heavy leader, it will sink. You may want that. But if you do want it to eventually float, which you might want that too, the leader will affect the action. I lied. I said I had one bait, but I have two. It's fine. I'll be quick. I know it's musky. So this bait is one of the baits that I caught the most musky on this year.
Musky again. Bent.
Yep. This is the KS Tackle Navin. This is the 8-inch size. I also have the 10-inch size right here, which is significantly larger. It's 2 inches bigger, but it's also like it's a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
This bait, heartbreak. I had more than a few, and definitely the biggest muskie of the year that I saw. Follow this boat right into the boat and reject it. and another fish come in hot and reject it.
And it's not for lack of trying, because if anyone can see the video, but if they're not, I can describe it. The front of that bait used to be painted, and around the hooks, like the hook rash and stuff. Like, this looks like a bait someone's had in their box. It's like, this is my lucky bait, and they've had it for 20 years. That's what this thing looks like. Jesse, let's put this through the ringer.
I would fish this religiously.
And again, not that it's a bad bait, because it just, he hasn't been able to get one to commit, but they're following it in. It has great action. I love the bait. I mean, I want to get one, honestly.
Yeah.
But I keep laughing.
They would not commit. But the smaller one, on the other hand, I caught a lot of fish on, actually. I caught more than a few. And it has, the cool thing with a Navin as compared to a Suic is they do have a very good, like a Suic I find is more like up and down, unless you find one of those magic ones, which I haven't. This one, when you jerk it down, it almost like hunts from side to side, which it's very cool. And you do have to tweak the back metal bill a bit, but once I tweaked it in and I have a little weight kit on here, it runs beautifully, and it doesn't just like seem mechanical. It does have a lot of alive randomness in the water, and for that reason I think maybe this one has a little more magic in it. Maybe that's why I caught more fish than the other one. The other one has a bit of that wobble, because when you jerk these down, when they start floating up, they kind of like rock. And that's secondary action. It looks like, when you look beside the boat, you're like, oh, that looks killer. And that's usually when the fish smacks, is when you jerk it down and starts floating up, they just come up and crush it. But I will be fishing this 8-inch one again next year a lot, but I will be trying really hard to actually catch one on the 10-inch, because I had that thing in the water a lot, like a lot. But that's musky fishing. If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun. Here's my last bait. Last bait that I did well on this year. Of course, no big surprise. Chaos Tackle Medusa. This is the regular. This is the hot perch color. Caught a few fish on this year. No giants, but some decent fish. It's just this is probably one of the most popular pull pause rubber baits at musky fishing the last 20 years anyway. It's like a bulldog, so it's a big rubber bait, but it's got 3 really long twister tails on them. I actually boiled the legs to make them a bit softer.
And to make a soup.
They are very, don't drink the water after, but the legs are very stiff when you first get them, which could be a good thing. But if you're fishing if you want it to have a lot of action, if you're reeling the bait in really slow or just slowly pulling it, this actually made the legs a lot more limber and flexible. So I don't know if that made a difference. Maybe.
Here's an idea. Yeah. Here's if you boil your soft plastics, make them softer, known thing. But if you boil it in hot dog water, does it increase the bite ratio, because they're now like hot dog flavored?
Hot dog flavored.
And I'm saying that here so that if someone else is hearing it, they can try it and let me know if it worked. Because I don't feel like boiling my baits in hot dog water. I'm concerned how my musky box will smell afterwards.
If anyone has hot dog water, it's Andrew, 100%. So
I keep it in the thermos when I go on those cold days.
So anyway, a bit of a longer episode today, guys and girls. We'd like to thank everyone again for, getting through another year listening to this insane podcast. Next year, 2026, we have big plans for more awesome episodes with guides. We're going to do more on the water episodes too. We have a few things in the works, so stay tuned for that. But we'd like to thank everyone for all the support that they give us every month. We love getting messages. We love getting reviews. We have over 630 5-star reviews on the podcast channel. That's amazing. That's absolutely fantastic. We rank high. We get a lot of good comments. We get a lot of appreciation messages. Keep it up. Keeps us going. Sometimes when we feel a bit like, I don't know if we should keep doing the podcast, we'll get like a good review and be like, all right, one more month. But anyway, before we go overboard and talk about every other lure that we've ever used, we are going to end this episode, and we are going to end with, as tradition states, we have always, every single episode, the quote of the week. And to handle that, we have Andrew, who's rapidly trying to think of one on the spot.
Well, the first thing that pops in my head is we talked about all our favorite lures. We talked a couple times about losing them. Maybe our favorite lures are the ones that we lost along the way.